mic's live. Maybe I won't be. Hi, folks. Some of you saw me all weekend. What can I say? Grace. Oh, you're still in the air. Oh, I'm sitting down, so I'm. I think part of me's in the air too. I hope the ones that were in Kentucky this weekend, aside from Grace, are home and well rested. I don't know about well rested, but we're home. It was hard leaving. We had a wonderful time. Met up with some friends that we've known for a couple years. Made some new friends. And I'm being stared at by Daryl. I'm not sure if I should worry about this.
Well, I was just going to say what our guest doesn't know about where we were at this weekend is we were like right across the street from a brewery.
That's true. We passed quite a few.
We were right in the heart of the bourbon area.
We sure were.
So we were down in Kentucky, and she knows a little bit about some of those establishments.
Some of those establishments. Some of the liquid establishments. Grace came to Kentucky this weekend. She's still in the air. And I think everyone else is home. Prayers, please, for Mark Avery. He had some issues this weekend. He is in a hospital in Lexington. Going to have a procedure tomorrow. I'm not sure of all the logistics. It's not my place to say, but some prayers could be said. That would be wonderful. Grammy Karen, you did an awesome job of getting this all put together and standing up there at the podium. And the best part, and I think Daryl will agree, and I said this Friday night when we got everything set up, was Wyatt doing the Pledge of Allegiance. That was awesome. He did an awesome job. I loved it. It was a great week, and we've loved all the meetups and conferences and gatherings that we've gone to. Love this one. You did good. First time, first annual. Can't wait for 2020 version. Okay, let's get our guest on here.
Okay.
For all you folks, this is definitely not homesteading. Juliette Miranda, and it's going to be an awesome night. Hope you have your thinking caps on, did some checking out of her podcasts, and we'll get this show on the road.
So how are you normally introduced, Juliette?
Gosh, I think it's a combination of podcast host, writer, bourbon drinker, the usual stuff.
So you're usually on the interview end.
I am, yeah. So whenever people are talking to me, it's always a little awkward for me.
So this is something a little different. But I will tell you, I love the way you describe the various bourbons. You just have this knack of words.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say. Thank you. I talk about the flavors that I like. I feel like bourbon is something that everybody can drink, so I just want to talk about things that make sense to people. So, when I taste something that just feels very like woody or, caramelly, I feel like that's something people can relate to.
I think you have the ability, you could take something that absolutely is disgusting and make it sound absolutely wonderful.
Well, I could certainly make it sound descriptive. I don't know if you'd still want to drink it after I got through with it, but I could tell you what it tasted like, all right.
I think if that was the case, if I had to taste it, my face would give it away for sure.
So what do you have on the table there beside you tonight?
Oh, I'm drinking something really neat. It's from Knob Creek, which is part of the Jim Beam family of products. This is a little different. It's a double-aged bourbon. So It starts with their traditional Knob Creek mash, and then they blend it with another mash that's been aged in these quarter oak casks. So that's a very small barrel. They're in there for 4 years, which means they really soak up a lot of that woody barrel flavor, and then they blend it with the regular bourbon. And the result is really cool. It's got this great, I mean, it really, you taste the barrel and the wood, but you still get the corn sort of sweetness from Knob Creek. And it's 100 proof, so it's definitely got a little bit of that alcohol kick. It's really good. It's great. And my producer is taking some right now because he has earned it. He's had a trying night. So
Well,
he's earned himself a drink.
and for those of you that don't know, Juliette does a live show every Monday night as well. It happens to be an hour ahead of ours. And we were just very fortunate that she said, well, sure, I can do a double tonight. I'll just jump off of mine and jump onto yours. So we got a little bit of a late start, but it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. We had a really hard time getting our show started today. For whatever reason, the internet wasn't cooperating with us. And so it was really, we were having some connection issues, and I had a special guest on. So it all just kind of moved back a little bit further than we would have liked. But I'm so glad to be talking with y'all now.
Well, and we know how it goes when the internet
Plays against
Yeah.
you.
twists your arm. But right now, everything is wonderful. I think we have a great picture. I know the sound's good. I believe everybody in the chat here will agree with that.
And Life with Linda just said, hello, David, the producer.
David is he's right now curled up in the kitchen nursing that bottle of bourbon after this long night that he's had. I think he needs a little bit of quiet time.
So, what did you do prior to the life of podcasts?
Gosh, I've done everything. I started. I've always been a writer. I think at my core, just writing has been a part of my life since I was a child, and I kind of turned it into a career when I started interviewing musicians and rock bands and writing for magazines. So I think writing is really just the main thing that I've been doing for as long as I can remember. I put out a book, wrote for magazines, and when the internet and social media kind of changed all of that, they changed the way that people read. I thought, well, okay, if people aren't reading, maybe they'll listen. And it's kind of gone from there.
And the name of your podcast is?
It's called The Unwritable Rant. And it's I call it bourbon soaked storytelling. It's me for 30 minutes or so, telling crazy stories about my life, about dating rock stars, about working in the music industry and travel and the goofy predicaments me and my guy get into. It's a lot of fun.
Squirrels in the bathroom.
Yes, yeah.
we were away this weekend, and when I think it was Friday night or Saturday, I don't know which night it was, came back into the camper and went to bed, and Daryl had the YouTube going on all night long. He sound asleep within seconds.
No, it was the podcast.
Podcast. Well, it was still your phone, and I'm laying there and I'm listening to the story, and you tell it about this. I'm in hysterics, and it's like, oh my gosh. It was a riot, and I got up next morning and says, "Were you even awake for any of this?"
I'm glad to hear.
Oh
It's
my
so funny
gosh,
that
it
you
was
say that. I
fantastic.
love that you said that you laughed, because I never know what's funny.
Oh yeah, it was and you have to, folks. You have to go back and find the one about the squirrel in the bathroom. You will. There's no way. If you sit there without chuckling, there is something wrong with your sense of humor. It was great. It was great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my poor husband and producer got into a wrestling match with a squirrel, so it's definitely a fun story.
It sounds a little wild. Where are you located at?
We're just outside of Chicago.
Okay, so you're in the middle of the country,
We are.
and that's kind of a long ways.
She's in Babe's area.
Yeah, she's in Babe's area. That's a long way from the hub of New York and the coastline of California. So You just
It
figure you
certainly
could
is.
cover both ends of the spectrum then? Because isn't
Well, we
that
do a lot of travel.
okay? And I've seen that with some of your YouTube experiences.
Mm.
We saw you were down in New Orleans and very
Oh, New Orleans. That's my favorite place ever,
very
ever, ever.
various other locations.
Uh, Juliet, we have one of our viewers. Her channel name is called Kiss My Grass Acres, and
I love that.
yeah. When she first started, it's like, what? Did I read that right? And she says, please tell her I said hello, and she is a beautiful young woman.
Oh, well, that is awesome. Thank you. And I'll make sure I check out your channel. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So we have we got a few in here tonight. Would you share a little bit of one of your stories that maybe you haven't done yet, or even one that you have, just to give people a taste?
Well, sure, I'd love to, but I could use a little bit of guidance. Is there something in particular that you'd like to hear about? Like, so I mean, I tell stories about everything. I have no shame. I'll talk about rock stars that I've dated. I'll talk about our travel, crazy things that happened to me and my guy. Is there something in particular that you want to hear about?
Oh, I don't have anything. Maybe somebody in the chat has something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, I'd love to know if there's anything in particular, they'd love to hear about.
If anybody in the chat would like to hear a little bit of something about something that's gone on in her past here, and get an idea for the way she tells these stories, because they are absolutely wonderful. She has a website. It's called theunwriterablerant.com, and your podcast can be located everywhere.
Yes, yes, it can. If you have a phone, a laptop, it's very easy. I know it's funny. A lot of times, people are like, "Oh, what's a podcast?" I keep hearing about these. Everybody seems to have one. It's really just, the radio on the internet, essentially. And it's really cool because, there's no limitations. You can talk about whatever you want. And it's kind of true. Everybody does have a podcast, but I think that's cool because everybody really does have a story to tell.
Kiss My Grass Acres is what is your favorite memory?
Oh, that's an easy one. It's actually the story. It's twofold. So the band Bon Jovi was really the first band that I fell in love with, and I went to see them because I'd won tickets off the radio for their show, and I was maybe 12 years old, and it was fantastic. It was my first rock concert, and I was seeing just kind of the power that music has on people, and I was really caught up with it, and I kind of promised myself in the middle of this concert, I'm 12 years old, and I'm looking around, and I just said, you know what? I want to make people feel this way too. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I wanted to. And that's why I started writing about music and why I started interviewing musicians. And as I started getting better at it and getting bigger interviews, I promised myself that one day I was going to interview Bon Jovi because this was the band that started it all for me. And it took a while, but I was finally able to connect with the band through their publicist, and I was interviewing them, and it's probably the worst interview I've ever done because I was so nervous and because I loved the band so much that I just blew the interview. I really turned into a fangirl, and I was mortified, and I said, I can't let it go. I want them to know that I'm a professional. So a couple of weeks later, I caught up with them at a show, and I had passes for the show, so I go backstage, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got to write this somehow. I've got to demonstrate I'm a professional and that, I can be taken seriously. So I go and I kind of talk with the band a little bit, and it's okay at first, but then again, I turn into this crazy little fangirl. And for whatever reason in the world, I'm looking at John Bon Jovi, and I'm thinking about all the things that I felt about him. It was admiration, and it was attraction because, of course, I'd had a crush on him. And I look at him and I go, hey, could I touch your butt? And I don't know what possessed me to say that. It just came out. It's one of those weird things that I had no control over. And he's looking at me and I'm thinking, oh no, he's going to throw me out. he's looking at me like, who let this crazy stalker fan in? And he was really quiet for a moment, and I'm about to just, bow out gracefully. And he looks at me and he goes, all right, just don't tell my wife. And he turns around, and I got to cup John Bon Jovi's butt.
Oh my!
And it was glorious. It was delightful. And at that point, we all just kind of laughed, and I was able to kind of let go of being the fangirl. And then it turned into just a cool conversation, and I made things right through touching John Bon Jovi's butt.
Okay, then.
Alrighty then. Put that in my memoirs.
Well, we've got a whole host of questions coming through here.
I was going to say, Life with Linda's asking, how did you meet David?
David. David, the producer, is my husband, and he and I met 10 years ago on MySpace. He was in a local band, and the lead singer of the band was sending out, emails to all the girls in town, letting them know that the band was going to be playing. And I thought, all right, they seem like a cool kind of band. So I went, and David and I just connected immediately. I thought he was funny and smart and handsome, and we started dating, and then we got married 2 years later.
Awesome.
Yeah. He really is the best partner I could ever ask for.
Cool.
I mean, he supports everything so much. I mean, he's the one who started producing the podcast, who said, okay, let me get this together. If it's what you want to do, I'll make it happen. And when we decided to try this YouTube thing out, he said, I'll make it happen. And he's with me for everything that I do.
Go. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
The Naked Gardener, what has one of your favorite interviews or events you have done in 2019?
Oh, that's an easy one. That is interviewing Joe Bob Briggs. He is a host. He hosts horror movies, but he's also a writer, and he's been doing it for decades. I grew up watching him host movies on TMC and TNT, and he actually was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of 9/11. He's an incredibly smart, talented guy, and I had an opportunity. He was at a film festival in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so we went out there and shot the interview, and it was so cool. He's just a cool, down-to-earth, awesome guy. So funny. I mean, just a blast to talk to.
And Golshaw Farm is asking, do you have any stories about Reverend Bob Levy?
Funny you should ask. He was just on my YouTube show an hour ago. And before that, Bob and I were connected. He'd been on my podcast, and then Bob and I did a podcast together for, I think, about 8 episodes or so before we had to let it go. He's such a cool, straight talker, just a fun guy. I'm so happy that I know him, because he knows how to just break things down and make me feel really good about what I'm doing. And he's so funny. So, yes, Bob Levy's a good guy.
If you could interview a person from the past or present, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think it would be Jim Henson.
Oh, really?
I love
cool.
the Muppets. Yeah, I love the Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
And he really, he made them out of nothing, and was just so creative. And I love that the personalities of the Muppets are so real. They're not silly cartoon characters. They almost seem like real people, and they're flawed, and they're a little sarcastic, and that's all from him. And I would love to talk to him about that.
That'd be cool. I agree with you. He seemed like he would be an awesome one to interview. Yeah. I agree with that one.
We're losing here. This stuff is going too fast.
I'm keeping up with it. What's your
all right,
problem?
All right, go ahead.
oh, look at that.
Go ahead.
Keep up with that.
That's why I'm going back here. Yeah, a lot of them. But Muppets were my idols. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, that was a godsend to parents when they came on board, especially the two old men, were they Muppets? Yeah, they were the Muppets.
They were.
They were the
Statler
Muppets.
and
Yeah.
Waldorf.
Yeah, I'm thinking
Yeah.
about Sesame Street. They were the Muppets. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think what's cool about the Muppets is that they're really geared both towards parents and kids, and they were probably among the first sort of, children's programming to be that way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Okay, we have a question from Mobile Homestead RV wanting to know what you think about James Hetfield leaving Metallica.
Oh, Metallica has been around for so long. I'm amazed that they've made it as long as they have, honestly, because, the relationship that musicians have with each other is so personal and so deep. And, it's so hard to maintain. It's not quite like family. I mean, family ties really never break, but with a band, so much else gets in the way. So, I mean, I think it's unfortunate, but it doesn't surprise me.
Well, just on a side note here, Kiss My Grass Acres wants to touch John Bon Jovi's butt too.
Yeah, well, Kiss My Grass
I
Acres
don't
is
blame
in a wheelchair, so that would be about the best place for her to touch.
Perfect access. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
And Mobile Homestead RV wants to know about Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses. Gosh, I interviewed Slash, and I interviewed Steven Adler. Slash was a total gentleman, a really cool, just down-to-earth guy. I really liked talking to him. Steven Adler was a little more erratic, but still nice. I'm not a huge fan of the band, quite honestly. I never really was, but I definitely appreciate what they've done for music.
Naked Gardener's asking if you can sing.
I think I can, but I really can't. And here's a demonstration of just how much David, the producer, will do for me, because he's also a musician. That's how how we met. And he does a lot of professional music work. He does a lot of stuff on studio albums, and he used to tour with Night Ranger. And he knows that I love, excuse me, he knows that I love to sing. So he was a part of a band that was on the NHRA soundtrack a few years ago, and they were recording a song for NHRA. And we were in the studio with them, and they needed somebody to do some backing vocals on the chorus. And I'm looking and I'm like, I can't volunteer to do this. But he's like, no, it's cool. He's like, Juliette, you can do it. You can nail this. So thanks to Auto-Tune, you can hear me on the chorus of a song called Hot Rod Heart. And that's all because of my guy.
Cool.
There you go.
Well, I know a little bit earlier, Stivers, and that's their last name. They had a thing on this weekend. That's why we were in Kentucky. And I'm sure it was Zach said that the Knob Creek that you have there on your table is made not that far from where they live. So I do remember that. Video calling show says, don't forget to ask Juliette about Crazy Town.
Oh, no. Oh, video calling show. You are in trouble.
Yes, I'm noticing that more and more here tonight.
Yeah, a little bit of trouble there.
And he's one of
Town
our future guests.
Oh, well, you'll have a blast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'll have a great conversation. But Crazy Town is a girlfriend of mine, and I named her Crazy Town because on the podcast, I don't name people by their actual names. And I do this with everybody, with all the musicians that I talk about, with my close friends. I never even call David by his name. I just refer to him as my guy, because it's kind of it's twofold. It's one, it's protection, because I don't want any slander or libel suits coming from some of these musicians. But also, I mean, it's my story, not theirs. So concealing their identities makes it a little bit more for me. And Crazy Town is a girl that I grew up with, and I had some really dangerously naughty adventures with that I talk about.
Let's see. Did you ever meet Journey?
No, Journey is one of the bands that I've never actually had any involvement with, and it's kind of a bummer because I love Journey.
Okay. Julia, let's take a short break here. I'm going to bring Smudge
Sure.
out, do the trivia, do the first trivia question. So I'm sorry you won't be able to hear him, but
No worries.
we'll keep you in touch here.
Hi, folks. It's trivia time again, and we have to have some rules for this, so they are as follows. Number 1, you can only win once every 4 weeks. Number 2, you must be the first person to answer the question correctly in the chat window as it appears embedded on the screen here. Your chat window may have a different order. And number 3, you have to send an email to twofamilyhomestead@gmail.com. Send us your mailing address so we know where to send your winnings. Good luck.
Okay, and just to for any of those that might be new in here tonight, we do this every week, and Baker Creek Seeds is helping us out on our prizes. So we have some packages of seeds that's going to go out, either vegetable or flower, right? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, either vegetable or flower, your choice. The official order of chat is what you see embedded in the screen in front of you. That's what we have to go by. The chat on your computer is more than likely, I'm sure it is, in a different order than what you're going to see here.
Jason.
So we'll put the question out, and whoever can answer it first, and I can guarantee you it is not a number. I can guarantee you it is not a number. And this may be a little bit tough for him, Juliette, because these questions they're gonna have to maybe know a little bit more about you. So we'll find out if we have anybody in here. Who did Juliette interview that revealed he wrote an episode of his podcast on the toilet?
Jeez. My goodness.
We may
You can
have.
find it on my YouTube channel. It's there.
Yeah, they did their homework. Somebody should know. No, Big Bear. Cheesecake on the brain.
Can I give a clue?
Okay, sure. Give a clue.
He has a very dirty job.
Boy, if you don't get it with that one.
Guns and cheesecake? Nope, that's not it.
That's what I'm saying. He's cheesecake on the brain. Nope.
It was not Howard Stern.
Nope.
He just published a book.
Mobile Homestead RV. Yes, sir. You're right. Mike Rowe.
Well done. Yes, Mike Rowe.
Winner, winner. Yeah, very dirty job. I mean, she couldn't get more. Pretty much what the TV show was. Watched it every week.
Okay.
But he completely admitted to writing one of his podcasts
God.
while in the bathroom.
Okay, and we've opened up the phone lines here if anybody would like to call in and say hello directly to Juliette. The numbers are going across the top of the screen. You will have to then punch in the meeting ID number. You'll be put into a room and your call will be muted until I get to you. And we'll just, I don't have any good way other than to say, we have a caller now, and I can announce the last 3 digits of your phone number so you know that I'm talking to you and you'll be ready to go. So the phone lines are open, and feel free to call. It's your nickel. Okay, Juliette, my question to you is, you've been on, you wrote a book, but are you writing a second? You in the process of doing that? I know that I've heard rumors, let's put it that way, that you're writing another book, but
Yeah, I am. Sometimes it's so hard to do it all. The podcast comes out once a week, and that requires 10 pages of notes. I do the live show every week, but yes, I'm also working on a second book, and it's actually fiction. I've never written fiction before. Everything my first book was a memoir, so this is very different for me, and it's taking a lot longer than I would have anticipated.
Have you ever met the band Slipknot?
Slipknot? No. All the work that I did in the music industry was during the heyday of the hair bands and into the early 90s. So I think the most of it was all, heavy metal bands, hair bands. I did a lot of work with bands like the Scorpions, Kiss, Motley Crue, bands like that.
Okay, and we do have a caller here, so I'm going to unmute him, and let's find out who's on the phone. All right, caller with the last three digits, 157. Hello. Hello.
Hello, my friend.
I knew it.
Where have you been?
I knew it.
Hello, this is Rajim Ahmed.
Juliette, we have a caller that calls in every week, and he's usually the very first caller. That's why I knew who it was. Oh, you're in for a treat.
I already sound.
She may not remember me. I was at that Bon Jovi concert. It was my band Guns and Bombs, and we were opening up for Bon Jovi, and we was in the back. We was hanging out with the Bon Jovi. We were drinking, and I offered to let her touch the turban, but she was too interested in touching his butt.
Girls got priorities.
Yeah, it's got the priority, but she didn't want to touch the turban. But Guns and Bombs, we opened up for them.
Guns and Bombs, huh?
Yeah, we brought down the house.
Yeah. And what is their best known song there, Ahmed?
Their best known song is Boom Boom Shaboom.
Of course it is.
Angel, he might have spit all over his phone with that introduction.
Yeah, saying that.
I have to put towel over phone when I say my name.
Is that the towel that you have on your head?
No. That's turban.
Oh, that's turban.
Yeah. In case we run out of toilet tissue.
In case you run out of toilet tissue. Okay.
Oh.
So, has she ever interviewed anybody from Baghdad?
No, I can't say that I have, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't.
There you go. I offer my services.
Oh, yes, I'm sure you do.
Jenny is asking you, Ahmed, if she touched your butt.
I don't recall. I do not think so.
Okay. You would have known, I'm
Mrs.
sure.
Ahmed might have been upset. I don't know.
Yeah, Mrs. Ahmed probably would have been upset.
No, I always ask permission first. I didn't just grab his butt. I asked if I could. There's a difference.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, Ahmed, you have any questions for our guests this evening?
No, I just wanted to know if she'd interview anybody from Baghdad. And then I figured, why not me?
There you go.
Well, you seem like a delight. I'd be happy to.
Is Mrs. Ahmed sitting next to you just rolling her head and going, oh my goodness?
No, for some reason, every time I call you, she leave room. I don't understand.
I just can't imagine why she would do
mumbles
that.
things like embarrassment, I can't believe you do this to me, stuff like that.
Oh, well, she doesn't sound very supportive.
I'll have to Marco Polo her later, so we can continue
Oh,
the conversation
got
from
long,
earlier.
She got a long drive tomorrow, so that's probably not good. Marco her tomorrow. She'll be all happy.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, she's all upset about the goat that's pregnant and wanting to do all these kinds of things, and you know, and we just got the goat, and now the goat is pregnant, and you know, we don't know if it's going to make it through the rest of the year or not. We just don't know.
Damn you up, man.
So, okay, well, I say good night. You guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you for letting me have time.
Good night, sir.
And if you want to interview the sexy man from Baghdad, you just give me a call.
Oh, I will be sure to do that.
Okay, bye-bye now. Y'all have a good day.
All right.
Charming.
Uh-huh.
You never know who's going to drop in.
Nope.
We have another person in the chat here. I don't know if they'll call in or not, but they have also started doing podcasts.
Oh, it must be
Oh,
Morgan.
nice.
And so, Morgan, if you're out there and would like to call in, I saw you earlier. Please feel free.
Yeah, I've been doing the podcast for 4 years. So if you have any questions about, getting started or, how to, market your show, I'd be happy to talk about it. The Unwritable Rant is in the top 200 podcasts on iTunes. So, there's tons of ways that you can, market your show and get listens and everything. So if you want to talk about that, I'd love to.
It's a little bit different venue than YouTube.
It's entirely different. In fact, when we were in California this weekend, I was with the Halos and Heathens. That's Neil and Annalise. They have a YouTube channel, and they also have a podcast. And we were talking about that because they're so very different. Podcasting is very personal and insulated because, it's one person listening to you, and they just hear what you have to say. It's recorded. There's no interaction. But then you get on YouTube, especially when we're doing live things like this, where people can immediately connect with you. It's interesting because I find that podcast listeners don't necessarily go over to YouTube to check out content, but people on YouTube will be happy to check out podcasts. It's a very different, it's a very odd dichotomy that we're still kind of trying to figure out.
Life with Linda's asking, does it cost money to do podcasts?
It doesn't have to. There's a lot of elements that go into it, and if you want to just do it very basic, it's something that you can record on your phone, and then there are free hosting services that you can post your podcast with that will distribute it to all of the podcast platform, like iTunes and Spotify and Android. But if you want to upgrade your services, to put out more content or longer shows, then it starts to incrementally increase in cost. So it could be as low as $4 a month or as high as $30 a month. It's really up to you and, how you want to work your podcast.
I see that we have Mobile Homestead RV in the chat here. It says that he did internet radio in the days of Winamp before the iPod was around. An 80s hair metal show.
Wow, that's very cool.
So, but I know we know some people that do some podcasts, and like I say, Goldshaw Farm is one of them. He has a very successful YouTube channel that has just recently blown up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good deal.
And he's been doing podcasts as well with some real popular YouTubers. So one of these days he's going to interview us, but he hasn't done that yet, Morgan, wherever you are.
Well, he's got to get on that.
And people are thanking you for you sharing your information and stuff here. So it doesn't look to me like you're able to really see the chat.
Unfortunately, no. I'm afraid I can't see the chat right now, it's a bummer. I'm sorry.
Do you yourself have a favorite podcast or a podcast moment?
I have several favorite podcasts. The one that actually got me interested in podcasting is from a comedian called Bill Burr. He's a very raw, sort of, feisty comedian, and I loved listening to him. And I was just like, if he can get on, microphone and rant like that, so can I. And that's actually what started the name, The Unwritable Rant, because my very first couple of episodes are really just me ranting about things that make me angry. But the show has definitely evolved since then. I mean, I'm on episode 201 right now, and it's turned into straight storytelling. But beyond that, I think my favorite podcast to listen to, and it's a very silly name, but they're called Super PP Time. And it's this crazy, absurd, funny podcast. These two guys, they do different voices and characters, and it's almost like Mad Libs. They drop in crazy words and tell funny sketches. They're funny, and it's so crazy and unlike anything I've ever heard before. I think they're so fun, and I really think they'd make a great cartoon, actually.
And Kiss My Grass wants to know if you've ever met Ozzy.
I have met Ozzy twice, actually. And a funny story about that. Now, I started writing about rock bands when I was 15. And Ozzy Osbourne was one of the very first big interviews that I ever did. And in high school, kids aren't so kind. And, when my article was published, kids started saying that I got the interview because I'd had sex with Ozzy Osbourne. And this rumor started circulating through town, and it got back to my mother. And one day I was shopping with my mom in the grocery store, and I was 17 years old. And she looks at me and she goes, "I have to ask you a question." She goes, "Did you have sex with Ozzy Osbourne?" And I'm like, no, I did not. And she said, "I just had to ask." She goes, "A couple of moms heard it from their kids, and it got back to me, and I just wanted to make sure, you were okay." And, it's kind of the bummer, that success doesn't always come with, the greatest of reception from some people. But, I did interview Ozzy, and it was crazy. You meet somebody like Ozzy Osbourne, who's just this figurehead of heavy metal. And, you're kind of in awe, and you're still trying to figure out the stuff to ask him. He was really nice, just a really cool, genuine guy.
And somebody, Mobile Homestead RV, is asking if you know Lita Ford.
I have never interviewed Lita Ford, and I always wanted to. She's one of the very few female rockers out there from that time. And I think she'd have some great stories, but I don't know, maybe we'll think about that and get her on the podcast. I think that could be kind of fun.
Surprised Morgan hasn't called in.
Well, I am too. I thought, unless
I know he was out here.
Unless he had to go do some other things, which that happens. But
yep.
So anyway, let's go ahead and get our other trivia question up here real quick.
Might as well.
And just hang with us here.
Well, hi, folks. It's trivia time again. And we have to have some rules for this, so they are as follows. Number 1, you can only win once every 4 weeks. Number 2, you must be the first person to answer the question correctly in the chat window as it appears embedded on the screen here. Your chat window may have a different order. And number 3, you have to send an email to twofamilyhomestead@gmail.com. Send us your mailing address so we know where to send your winnings. Good luck.
Okay, and again, just to kind of reiterate what Smudge has laid out here for you, the official order of chat is embedded on the screen in front of you. That's what we have to go by. So, just so everybody knows, and if you are the winner, please email us at twofamilyhomestead@gmail.com. And if your email address does not associate with the name that you have in the chat here, please make sure that we know who it is. So, the next question is, which musician was interviewed in Juliette's living room?
Also on my YouTube channel.
on your thinking caps, folks. No, Big Bear. Not Elvis.
If you take a quick peek at the channel, you might find it.
Yep.
And no, it wasn't Ahmed.
No, I'm sorry to say.
Wasn't Prince. Not Ozzy. Not Alex Rose. Nope. Nope. Nope.
All you have to do is check my channel real quick.
Yep.
It's right there. Very obvious.
Just bring up another tab. There you go. Smudge is giving you the link so you can go over and check out her YouTube channel.
A little help.
Go ahead. No one has their thinking caps on. Gone over to her channel and check it out. It's there. Any hints, Juliette?
Well, I mean, I was just thinking, it's so easy. It's like dust in the wind. But if you have a wayward son, I'm guessing he would know the answer.
Those are about as giveaways as the one from Mike Rowe. You gotta wonder. No. Not Kansas, not Bruce String.
Oh.
Well, Kiss My Grass. Never enough
specifics?
time. Get a little bit more specific.
You gotta go to the channel. You
Yeah.
gotta see the name.
You're not specific enough. Nope. Boy, they just don't have their thinking caps on tonight. Definitely got them stumped.
I know, and it's right there. It's like third in the celebrity interviews. Just go to my channel. Oh, wait.
Jenny, you are correct.
There we go.
Jenny is right.
Okay. Jenny, please send an email to twofamilyhomestead@gmail.com.
Well done, Jenny.
Ron Platt.
Yeah, he's a true rock star. He was brought into the band to kind of pick up where their original singer left off, and such a cool, just full of stories guy. He's originally from Chicago, and that's how we managed to get him in our living room of all places. He was back home, and David and him actually played in a band together many years ago before he was in Kansas, and they maintained their contact, and
Awesome.
David was like, hey, we're doing this YouTube thing, do you want to be a part of it? And he was like, sure, of course. And he gave us an entire afternoon. It was terrible outside. It was snowing. I think we had maybe like 5 inches of snow, but he came over anyway, just drove himself over and hung out with us for a couple of hours and told stories, and brought all sorts of, goodies, autographed pictures of Kansas. And he was a very cool guy.
Okay, and we had a question that we elected not to have displayed here, but I am a little bit curious.
Yeah.
So
Ask away.
the question is, if I sweeten it up a little bit, who was the person that was the most difficult or obnoxious
Jerk. Just phrase it like they did.
that you interviewed?
That I've interviewed. Okay,
that you've interviewed, yes.
That's wow, that's a hard question to answer. I'm gonna have to give you a little bit more of a generic answer because I don't like to name people when it comes to
totally
negative
understand.
things like that.
Yes, absolutely.
But what I can say is that, and this is really interesting. So the bigger bands, like the bands like the Scorpions or even Guns N' Roses, they were always great to talk to, but the people who've given me the biggest attitudes in interviews were always the smaller bands, and I don't know how to explain that, but it was always these more up and coming bands who would show up to interviews late or who would be drunk when I was talking to them. And I don't know how to explain that, but it was very frequently the case. And they were always the ones who would hit on me during the interviews. They didn't have quite the same level of respect that these really well-established musicians did.
Is there anybody that you've engaged in an interview that you wish you hadn't have?
Well, on the podcast, I did an interview with someone, and I'm not going to say who, but I hate the interview. I hate the interview so much because we both just weren't into it. I respect this person so much. It's a comedian, I'll say that much, and no, it's not Bob Levy. I really genuinely love this person's comedy, but somehow we weren't clicking in the interview, and he was having a really bad day. So he wasn't giving me totally developed answers. And I was trying really hard to get answers out of him, and I wasn't as good about it as I would have liked to have been. So every time I listen to this interview, it kills me because I'm like, oh God, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? If I could hit, redo on this one interview, I would love to so much because I'd love to have a chance to just talk to him where we're both in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next on your agenda? What you've written a book that I don't know how well it became, but I know that you did a tour for signing.
I did a national book tour. Yeah, I hit Barnes and Nobles and border stores around the country, which is almost unheard of for a first-time author. But now, like I said, I'm working on that crazy work of fiction called Home is Where We Are Not. Mostly right now we're focused on developing the YouTube channel, and we're also talking to a few film production companies regarding the podcast, seeing if it's possible to turn some of the stories into a full-on acted web series.
Oh, okay.
That'd be cool.
Sure. Yeah. We also know another YouTube channel that does a radio show, and they incorporate their radio show into some of the YouTube things. They take pieces of their radio show and make YouTube videos out of them.
Cool.
But they do a live show it's every week, isn't it? Every Saturday or something.
What's their name?
Wisconsin.
Oh, the Wisconsin Gardener.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. That sounds very cool.
We've just done so many, but yeah, it's the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
Yeah, Wisconsin
Vegetable Gardener.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and they actually do they have a syndicated radio show
Wow, good for them. That's incredible.
That they they have turned that into doing some YouTube stuff as well, and I'm almost surprised they're not in here. They pop in every so often. So
Do you have Robert's question there? Kilted Gardner?
okay, yeah, Kilda Gardner. Hey Juliet, what do you think of Rebel Yell bourbon?
Rebel Yell Bourbon. I think it's a little young, but I think it's on to good things. So when I say young, I mean that it's not fully developed. I think it's a 2-year bourbon. I could be wrong, but I think it's a 2-year bourbon. And when you have a bourbon that's just out of the barrel, there's a lot of flavor that goes into it, and I feel like if it just has maybe 2 more years in the barrel, it's going to be something spectacular. So right now, it's not something that I drink, but I think that it's got a lot of potential.
Deborah McCrae is asking, is there anyone that you haven't interviewed that you would climb mountains to interview?
Oh my gosh. So many people. And I think number one on that list would be Bill Burr, the comedian whose podcast got me started. And I, and it's so hard to think about it because, I don't even know if I would know what to say to him. It would be like the Bon Jovi thing, only I don't want to touch his butt. He's so smart and so funny, and I would love to be able to talk to him about it. But, it's one of those things, they say don't meet your idols. You don't know if you'll be disappointed or not.
Yeah.
So
I've heard that also.
yeah.
Angel Cooper saying, I have a friend that is a bourbon connoisseur who loves Eagle Rare. Have you tried that one?
Yes, Eagle Rare is fantastic. I tell everybody that you have to try that. It's an aged bourbon, so it's about 12 years old. It comes from the Buffalo Trace family, and it's very well priced. I think it's maybe $40 a bottle, and for a bourbon that's been aged 12 years, that's incredible. It is delicious stuff. Absolutely. That's a great drink right there.
Farming Our Backyard. Did you ever meet Adam Curry? If so, what's he like in person?
Adam Curry, it's funny you should bring him up. I've never personally interacted with him, but David has. And he gave us a whole lot of tips on the podcast and something that we do in order to kind of monetize the podcast, because it's very hard to make money off of a podcast. But there are ways around it, and I didn't want to do a Patreon page because a lot of podcasts do that. And to me, it feels a little bit too much like Netflix in that, people are committed to giving, a certain dollar amount every month.
Right.
And then I'm committed to developing even more content on top of what I do. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to rope people into subscribing to the show, essentially. But Adam Curry had this great suggestion, and it's something that he's been doing from the very beginning, where he has a PayPal page set up, and it's just a one-time donation service. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of branded it as being, buy me a drink. If you like what you hear, mm-hmm. let's just think of it as two friends hanging out in a bar, just throw a drink my way.
Yeah,
and
I've seen that little icon there. Yeah.
Yeah, I credit, and that's all because of Adam Curry. He
mm-hmm.
and David had a little chat about it, and that's what came out of it.
That's a good way to phrase it there. Jessica from J Love Adventures, is there anyone who passed away that you wish you could have interviewed before they died?
Well, a very deep dive in that respect would be Ernest Hemingway. He's my favorite writer.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have talked to him, but kind of in a similar vein, I interviewed Shannon Hoon, who was the lead singer of Blind Melon, who did that song No Rain with the little bumblebee girl. And not too long after I interviewed him, he actually passed away from a drug overdose. And it was the very first musician that I had ever interviewed who had died. And it was this, and he and I had this great conversation. We had a fun time. We were in this outdoor amphitheater. It was before a show that he did with Soundgarden. and it had just rained and nobody was there yet. So he and I went out into these lawn seats and started sliding down mud hills in the middle of the interview, just talking and laughing and sliding down hills. And it was so fun, and I really, formed like a friendship with him. And I found out, a few months later he died, and it really shook me up because I'd never had that close of a relationship with somebody like that. It was scary and sad.
Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine. What do you see, Daryl?
Well, I see that that we have gotten all of 58 thumbs up. Did I see that right?
Yay!
No, 53 thumbs up. So we need a few more people to thumbs up, and somebody tripped over that and give us a thumbs down. I don't understand those ever,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
Oh,
It's a
so
view.
rude.
It's a view. Kiss My Grass Acres. I got to meet John DeLancey. Do you like shows like Star Trek?
I used to watch Star Trek when I was a kid with my dad, but I'll tell you what I like a whole lot better is Buck Rogers. I am a huge Buck Rogers fan. That TV show was just, he was a crush of mine when I was a little girl, and I have the entire collection of TV shows on DVD. I still go back and watch them because I love Buck Rogers.
Kilted Gardener, and yes, he actually does wear a kilt. My brother, yeah, we saw him last month. My brother bought me a bottle of Woodford Reserve Double Oaked, and I really enjoy that bourbon.
Oh, nice choice. Yeah, that's very similar to this, actually. It's got that really potent, woody, oaky sort of flavor. And I love Woodford Reserve in general. They're doing great things. They have a new Master's Select that just came out. That's kind of, it's very different. It's a chocolate flavored bourbon, but there's no chocolate in it. What they do is they toast the rye grains so thoroughly that it actually starts to take on these chocolate properties. It's fascinating and very cool.
That's pretty neat. Well, so far no more questions. The phone lines are still open, I think. If anybody wants to...
Actually, I shut them down because
You should, because no one else called.
nobody else called, and
They were afraid to go on after Ahmed.
that could very well be.
Yeah.
That could very well
Who
be.
could blame them?
And of
He
course-
really is. He's a show stealer.
And in all fairness, we're a little out of our wheelhouse tonight, but we have had a nice, interesting group of folks in here tonight.
Now since you opened that, you're supposed to close it.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and I want to say too, I know this is out of your wheelhouse, and I really want to thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate this so much. I was a little surprised that you guys, wanted to have me on because I'm, so different, but I love what you guys do, and I was so happy that we could make this work.
We've been looking forward to it.
Yes, we have, and we enjoy that very much. We've had some professional chefs on. Mm-hmm. We've had help me here.
You seem to be
I seem to be doing just
hanging
fine. and
yourself just
hanging
nicely
myself
here.
Just fine. But we occasionally get out of our realm here, and we look at the entire YouTube community as, in general, very good people. And
Definitely.
we certainly think you're one of those very good people. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's so interesting with YouTube. We make these really cool connections with people that are just, they immediately become our friends. I love it. It's such a, cool place.
Yeah, like I said, we went to a meetup this past weekend in Kentucky, and we've been on 3 years.
4, 3, 4, yeah.
Three, well, doing this for 3 years.
Yes, doing
but,
this,
but
yeah.
YouTube more than that. And a lot of the people that you meet online, that when you meet them in person, it's just an extension because you already know them.
Yes,
it's just
isn't
like-
that crazy?
Yeah, you're just meeting them
know their
face to face.
voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It
I
is
love
so
it.
weird.
It's like when we met up with the Halos and Heathens. We've been communicating with them for a couple of years now, and then meeting them in person, it was just like nothing. Like we already knew them.
Right, exactly.
And we did get a question here. Want to know what your opinion is on Scotch.
Scotch. Oh gosh. I'm learning to appreciate it more now. In fact, Scotch Test Dummies is a great YouTube channel. And I just had Scott and Bart on my show a couple of weeks back. And it's because of them that I'm really learning a little bit more about Scotch and the different flavors associated with it. It's so different from American whiskey, and from bourbon especially. But I'm getting there. You know, it's a learning curve. It wasn't my first choice in something to drink, but I'm definitely, learning more about it and learning how to appreciate it.
And Deborah McRae says, please relay to Juliette. I personally really enjoyed having you on. It was an interesting conversation. I love your stories and well wishes.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you so much.
Well, and kiss my grass. Where did she put that? I still want to touch John Bon Jovi's butt. And your guy said that he'll put in a good word for her. That made her night.
We'll see what we can do.
She's in Virginia, just to let you know where she's at.
All right.
So, folks, thank you all for being here tonight. I want to let you know that, tune in every Monday night, and we try to have somebody interesting. Next week, we're going to have the channel Garden City Homestead will be our guest. Smaller, newer channel. And anything else you want to say, hon?
No, I just appreciate everybody being here, and it was enjoyable. Anytime you decide if you want to come back, we can make arrangements.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. Well, I just want to thank everybody who's been, asking questions in the chat and hanging out. And I want to thank you too, especially for having me on. This has been so cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, and Juliette, don't go anywhere, but go ahead and wave.
Hanging on.
All
Cheers,
right.
y'all.